Alright guys, today we're going to be cutting some 1x8s for Colton's chicken shed that he wants, where he's going to store his feed and maybe raise little chicks in there. We're lifting this log with this log loader. This thing does a pretty good job. I've had times before where it wouldn't load because it was too heavy. It has to be a really big log to not load. One time I had to take my tractor and help load it because the sawmill couldn't pick it up, but it was like a 19-foot, 26-inch white oak. It was about all the sawmill could handle. I got too many limbs on this tree, but I'm gonna actually cut it to 3/4 of an inch instead of 1 inch. But yeah, I got too many limbs on here. But when we get through with this log, I may cut this cherry over here. I got a cherry over here that I've had down for a year or so. I'm gonna cut it when we get through with this. But I really don't like pine. It's nothing special about it. But what we try to do is cut it, we're going to try to cut it about 4 inches from the center and box it out and then cut 1x8s out of it. This sawmill has an automatic adjustment, so I just hit a button in it and it'll go down for me. It also has a debarker where if any dirt's on the log, it'll cut through it. This last time I used this blade, it came off and got bent a little bit, so I kind of hear it rattling. But we're gonna cut with it. It may come off. If it does, y'all see it. These blades can be $30, $40, $50 a piece, but they'll cut 300 or 400 board feet of oak. But pine, it'll cut a pretty good bit of pine. Pine's pretty soft wood. It's nothing special about pine to me. It's probably my least favorite wood. It's one of the easiest to cut on the sawmill, but as far as working with wood, I like pine the least because it's so soft. These edge pieces will edge at the end. Or sometimes we just save them for when we build up a bunch of them, we'll save them and do it all at one time. We don't usually measure this, but we got a really small log here. I want to make sure I get as close as I can. So that's pretty good. We'll flip it now. So this sawmill tells me how far I am away from the bed, and so I don't have to measure anymore. I can go to 8 inches on my screen here, and that's how far I am away from the bed. And I know I'm getting a 1x8. I got a little knot sticking off of it. I hope we can get by that. I should have cut these limbs a little closer to the trunk. Sometimes I can cut those with a sawmill, so I don't that one just where it was positioned. I should have cut it shorter. And we're going to keep cutting until we get down to 8 inches on my display. And then we'll flip it up and we'll have our 1/8 or 3/4 by 8. 3/4 inch. And this thing has a board return on it, but a lot of times if I'm by myself, I don't use it. It kind of gets in the way. But boy, it brings the board back to you. And if you don't have another person helping you, it's kind of hard to handle that board and try to control it at the same time. So I don't use the board return a lot. Now this pine is really nothing special. I'll show you the grain. Let me dump these boards. This LT70 has all hand control, so you don't have to do anything. We'll look at this grain and then we'll finish cutting it to 1/8. You can see here, I mean, it's got some knots in it, so it's pretty with those knots, but it's nothing real special. And some people love pine. I guess it's a matter of preference, but for me, it's kind of just a boring wood. Now we can flip this thing up. Oh. You see, I just flipped that thing off the sawmill. It's got this log roller. It works pretty good, but if you go too fast, you can flip it off. These trees were all trees that had died from a drought that we had last year, and I cut them this winter, or a few weeks ago actually, to salvage them. They got good wood in them, it's just the pine beetles killed them, and I think it's because of that drought. Now we should be able to get 7 or 8 boards from this, since we're only cutting 3/4 of an inch. When I get to this part, I just go. I don't cut the blade off. I just go. I cut it all the way down to the pith, and then we'll flip it. If this blade will stay on, I don't know. It sounds like it's. You can hear that bend flapping a little bit. We got a pretty big cherry log we're gonna cut next. And that's the kind of stuff I enjoy cutting. Now the pith is the center of the wood. The very center where it kind of splits right there. You can see it split there kind of. I'm going to try to go all the way down to that if I don't have my legs up too high. So we got 3 boards now. We may be able to get 10 out of this one. Might be able to get one more before I have to flip it. Barely got it. a little too close, Colton. And we'll go ahead and load these in the bucket, and then we'll get that, flip it over and cut that other side. This top part is just wasted. Use it for firewood, or I mean, you could use it for fencing panels, I guess, but this stuff's light, Cole. Those logs have kind of dried out. Those things are a lot lighter than normal. The last piece is going to be about 2 inches. You can't go all the way down to the bed or your blade will hit. So the last piece always has to be about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. When you're doing siding on a small shed or something, I mean, 3/4 of an inch thick is thick enough. And this is going to be board and batten, so if there's any shrinkage, which pine don't shrink a whole lot, but if there's any shrinkage, the batten will cover it up. So we can see now we're down to about 3.5 inches, or actually 3 inches. We'll probably get 1, maybe 2 more out of this one. We're not going to try to go in lower than this. So we're going to cut this off and load this pine, and then we're going to go get that cherry and cut it. The thing about when you're cutting your own lumber, you can take the edge pieces. I mean, you flip it over, you can get a piece out of that, but we won't count that one as a good piece. So let's see how many we wind up getting. How many we get? What's that put us at? Let's see. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces, not counting the bad piece. That's not too bad. Well, that was 10 boards, not counting the edge pieces. Those edge pieces would be a little more. I'm gonna let Colton load this wood up, and I'm gonna go get that cherry log. This is a pretty big cherry log. Of course, the sawmill doesn't have any trouble picking this one up. It's not as big as that white oak was. It's still a big log. I don't know why I cut it so long, but let's see if it's gonna fit. This thing is 18 feet long. We're gonna cut it. We're gonna cut slabs till we get to a 2x8. So we've put this thing a little bit too close on this side. And one thing about these sawmills, if you don't line them up perfect, they you gotta take the log back off. But we're gonna try to move it with this. So we only had just a little bit to move it. So I think we got it. Let's see. Yeah, we should be good. We should be good. So let's cut through this cherry log and see what we got. We're gonna cut live edge to about, let's do let's do 10, all the way down to 10. So we'll have, at the end we're gonna go 1 3/4 on each of them, 1 3/4 inches. And so at the end we'll have 2x8s basically. We should be ready to go now. This wood may be pretty tough because this one's been on the ground a while. I've been waiting to cut this for a long time. Just hadn't had a good day. Today is the day. Let me show you what this cherry looks like before we start cutting into it. You see that reddish pink grain? That's some pretty stuff. This tree was blown and broke off in half in a windstorm. Other than that, it's a pretty healthy tree. Told there's another one somewhere that's broke off behind the house. We need to find it. That's one good thing about having a sawmill is you can salvage trees that are blown over. I've never cut a cherry tree on this sawmill. So this is the first one I've cut. And you got to kind of, it's different trees are different when you're sawing. It's, you know, if it's a poplar or a pine, you can go on through it pretty easy. Unless the pine has a lot of knots in it, then it can be a problem. But when it's a hardwood, you got to go pretty slow. I got some cracking on this end. You know, it's long enough where you can cut all that off. Because we'll have to cut it down to 8 feet to get it in the kiln. We'll dump these two and then look at it and see what it looks like. I put my lift up just so it won't roll the log off when we dump it. So we can take a look at this log, or this cherry, and that's a pretty wide slab. Let's get the tape on it. I need something to brush this off a little better. And that's going to be a 20-inch. It's a 20-inch slab on the big end. I mean, that's a pretty good size slab. I'm thinking maybe we'll just keep going and just slab this thing out and, you know, figure out later whether we won't make live edge or what, we let it dry. I think we'll do that.